Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. A couple of days ago, I did a video called Third Time is the Charm, and that was a video showing cases where it took the third album for a band or an artist to break through to the population. This video is similar but different. How about bands that broke through on their first album, their debut? Now, there's too many of those. How about they broke through on their first album, but the first album, in my opinion, is still their best album. And that's what this video is about. I'm going to be showing you 32 albums, debut albums, that I think are still the best album by that band. And then I'm going to show you another dozen runner-ups that maybe you think they are, maybe I don't think they are, but you're probably thinking about them. Now, I'm big on videos like concepts like this. If you go to playlists on my channel and you go to discographies by topic, there's like 82 videos there. There are a couple of videos on debut albums. One in particular you may want to check out. I literally show 200 of my favorite debut albums from my database down there, my catalog. I show the physical CDs, 200 of them, and I do it in 40 minutes. So check that out. I do some other debut album videos as well. Without further ado, let's get kicking on this one. Debut albums that are the best albums by these artists. Now, when I thought of this concept today, instantly I thought of three of them. I'm going to show you those three to start off, and then I'm going to do them in random order just to keep us on our toes. Makes it more interesting for me, and maybe for you too. You just never know what's going to pop up. All right, let's do it. So the very first one I thought of is this one, Asia. If you know my channel, I'm actually a really big fan of this album, and I actually like a lot of the latter-day Asia stuff as well. But there's no doubt about it, guys. This is the best Asia album, and that's what they made themselves, I guess, kind of famous on. So there's Asia. What's the other really obvious one? Boston, the debut album. It doesn't get any better than this. They certainly, in my opinion, never bettered it. I am a fan of Boston, and I have their other albums. But this one, perfection. That's going to go right over there. How about this one? And we are all thinking of this one. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. They built a stadium-level legendary band reputation, really, on this album. I mean, I like Use Your Illusion, and I like the other albums as well, but come on. Appetite for Destruction is their huge reputation. As is this one, the only vinyl I'm going to show you, Meatloaf's debut, Bat Out of Hell. I don't think he's come close to doing anything else on that level. So there you go. Bat Out of Hell from Meatloaf. All right, let's keep going in random order. This one, to me, also really, really obvious. The Go-Go's, their debut album, Beauty and the Beat. Doesn't get much better than this. This is a perfect album. That's the hype sticker from the original vinyl when I bought it when it first came out. There you go, the Go-Go's, right there. How about this album? This album is a phenomenal album. I bought it when it came out. I loved it. I still love it. And they're a mighty fine band. The Gin Blossoms, New Miserable Experience. This was their first full-length album. This is actually one of those deluxe editions. This is still a phenomenal sounding album. If you don't know the Gin Blossoms, that album is a must. I'm telling you, you'll thank me because it is really that great. All right, now we can see it. Let's keep going. Here's an album that you may not be familiar with, but if you know Marillion, the lead singer, Fish, went solo, and his first album is still an incredible album, Vigil in a Wilderness of Mirrors. I did a video on this, actually, when I first started my channel, just on this album, how great this album is. It really is. It's just, he never, in my opinion, approached, again, the greatness of this album, though he's had a fine solo career. How about this album, I'm Here on Long Island? And this band had a huge debut on Atlantic, relatively at the time. New Orleans band, but they're really known as a Long Island band because they're New Orleans and Long Island. That's their big street pocket. We're talking Zebra. And this debut album, to this day, for me, is a perfect album, and I love it. Zebra. David from New Orleans. You gotta know Zebra. All right, let's keep going. How about, in no particular order, this one? Some people may not agree with this, but I think the debut album by The Doors is far and away, ooh, slippery hands, but I caught it, is far and away, I think, their best album. I love The Doors, or I really like The Doors. I have all their albums, but The Doors debut, to me, is perfection for them. Let's see at random. How about this one? The solo album, first solo album by Robbie Robertson of the band. This album is one of my favorite albums of all time. I think it's perfection, amazing album. And as much as I like Robbie Robertson's solo career, beyond that album, that album stands head and shoulders above the rest of his solo career. In my opinion, does anybody remember this band? Jet. They have a couple of albums, but they never were able to duplicate the success and impact of their first album, Get Born. Phenomenal album. Love this album. And it was a huge hit for me the year that album came out. Right there. How about the debut album by Television? Marquee Moon, considered a classic. And it's a mighty fine album. I think their second album's pretty damn good too, Adventure, which doesn't really get much reputation. But Marquee Moon is definitely their peak, no doubt about it. When you talk about great debut albums that never really had success after that, everybody's going to be thinking of The Knack, Get the Knack. I've done videos on The Knack. I'm a big fan. They were great musicians, really great musicians, and wrote amazing pop rock songs. Doesn't get any better than Get the Knack. Unfortunately, they just kind of destroyed their reputation with certain bad career moves. But musically, great stuff. All right, how about Cyndi Lauper? Her debut album, Girls, She's So Unusual. Boy, I said Girls Just Want to Have Fun. That was a big hit. There it is. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Money Changes Everything. Time After Time, She Bop, loaded with hit singles, really excellent album, and she never was able to really duplicate the success of that one. The second album, True Colors, is mighty fun. I saw that tour, but that is it right there. As is this one. I'm wearing this shirt for a reason, Stevie Nicks, and her first solo record is absolutely magical, and that was Belladonna. And she never, in my opinion, approached the greatness of this album ever again. I have a bunch of her solo albums. Amazing what she did with her career. She's huge, man. I think she's bigger than Fleetwood Mac. That's how big she is. But that's a great album for sure. How about, who's this one? Here's a band, the Smithereens. You remember them? This is a killer debut album, especially for you. The second album was Green Thoughts, which was really good too. But this album, man, Strangers When We Meet, Behind the Wall of Sleep, Blood and Roses, really good record. They never bettered this album. How about, well, you talk about classic debut albums that are the best they ever did. How about it's the only one they really ever did? You're talking about the Sex Pistols. And never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols. Well, what can you say? Their whole career really pretty much wound up in this one, and for good reason. That is a tremendous album. Oh, David, I knew that was going down. I do not want that to go down. Hang out there, buddy. All right. I'm going to lean you against Meatloaf. He'll hold you up. How about this album? I never hear people talking about this album. I was just talking about this album with Martin, one of our legendary viewers, commenters, great guy from across the pond. The Tom Robinson Band. I actually did a video. It's in my playlist where I talk about this album a lot. Power in the Darkness from the Tom Robinson Band. This debut album is as good as it gets. I'm telling you, I did a video of debut albums from the late 70s, and this was like amongst my favorites, if not my favorite. It still is. The second album's good too. But Power in the Darkness from the Tom Robinson Band, kind of, certainly in the United States, a forgotten record. And it's really a shame, man, because it's so fantastic. Are you going to stick there? I don't know about that. All right, we'll work it out. We'll work it out. There you go, Tom. People should rediscover that. I'm telling you how great that is. How about Steve Forbert? Anybody remember Steve Forbert? Alive on Arrival. Great debut album. Now, the second album had the big hit, Romeo's Tune. But this album is amazing. And that's my choice right there. Alive on Arrival from Steve Forbert. How about King Crimson? To me, their best album, In the Court of the Crimson King, of course, with Greg Lake. Now, King Crimson's an interesting band, a myriad of lineups and completely different sounds, and really a very different band in different ways. But for me, they never bettered that album, and that is certainly a legendary album. I'm going to be talking about this album. I have discussed it multiple times in multiple videos. I was onto them from the get-go, and the Pretenders' debut album is one of the greatest debut albums of all time, and I actually think it's one of the greatest albums of all time, and they have never bettered it, in my opinion. There is the Pretenders. How about, kind of in that late 70s, punkish kind of new wave thing, Joe Jackson and his debut album, Look Sharp. What a great album. He's had a great career. I'm a fan of Joe Jackson. Never really talk about him. Discovered him because my friend Sandy was a really big fan. This album is absolutely killer. The second album, I'm the Man, is also great. But I don't think it reaches quite the heights of Look Sharp. There you go. How about this one? The band Heart. Their debut album, Dreamboat Annie, is still my favorite album by them. And they never bettered it. Little Queen's great. Dog and Butterfly is really good. Some of the latter stuff is really good. But this album, what a great debut album. And I am definitely putting Dreamboat Annie over there. How about this one? Now, I know, you're going to get technical. Out of the Beatles solo stuff, I'm going with George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. Now, I know there's a bunch of you saying, you don't know what he's talking about. It's not his first album. It is his first album. I'm not talking about Wonderwall and electronic sounds. This is his first real album where he was able to get those songs that he'd been bottling up for years. This is George Harrison's debut album, and All Things Must Pass is, in my opinion, certainly his best album, and he never bettered it. That's for sure. In my opinion. The hell with it. We'll stick this over here for now, and we'll remind me I don't want that falling. This one might be a little controversial amongst you people out there, but I think Are You Experienced from the Jimi Hendrix Experience is his best album. I like it much better than the two other ones after that, and also the Band of Gypsys album. So I'm going with Are You Experienced because I think it is phenomenal. I also thought this was a great album. Do you remember Dido and the album No Angel? I have all of Dido's albums, and none of them approaches the greatness of No Angel. Love this album. There you go, Dido. Okay, here's one that a lot of people are not going to agree with. And I thought hard about this, but you know what? For me, Elvis Costello's debut album, My Aim Is True, he's never bettered it. This is an amazing debut album, backed by Clover. But we're going to stick that there. This year's model, Armed Forces, are also amazing. He's an incredible artist, and so I could understand why a lot of people might say, nah, that's not his best. But for me, I'm still going to go with this, My Aim Is True, as Elvis Costello. We got to talk about him. He doesn't get any respect anymore, really. Amazing drummer, huge impact when he was in Genesis, and Phil Collins' solo career was massive. He never bettered his debut album, Face Value. This is a deluxe reissue where he changed the cover, which I kind of thought was cool that he did all of that kind of stuff. But this album is killer. And I know in America, they're still always playing In the Air Tonight. Still sounds great. How about this one? I'm so glad that she had that cover version. That was a huge hit. She should have had a #1 hit with it, with Fast Car. We're talking about Tracy Chapman, and her first album is damn near perfection. She certainly never bettered it, and that is going here as well. A few more. What do you think? We got 4 more, and then I'll show you some other stuff. I'm going to go with Bad Company, their debut album. We used to say when I was a kid in the 70s, Bad Co by Bad Co by Bad Co, because the title track on the first album by the band. I always thought that was kind of cool. But I don't think any Bad Company album approaches the greatness of this album. Their other albums are really good too, by the way, but this is just great. I'm going to show you another one that you may not remember, but it is so great. And he's kind of a forgotten artist. We're talking about the Jim Carroll Band and the album called Catholic Boy. You remember People Who Died, only people who died, all my friends, they died. They used that in a horror movie, one of the zombie movies I remember. But this is a killer album. And I got all of those other ones, Dry Dreams. There's a couple of albums, but none of them approach the greatness of Catholic Boy. And I am going to go so far as to add in the Cars. Their debut album is sheer perfection. I enjoy Candy-O. I enjoy Heartbeat City. Great albums, but nothing, in my opinion, is approaching the greatness of that debut Cars album. I got one more, which you probably don't know, but I'm going to recommend it because I thought it was absolutely incredible. One of those albums that kind of changed my life. It was a huge hit for me, and I bought all their albums since then. They have a lot, but none of their albums, they're all kind of similar. This is still the best. Blackmore's Night, Richie Blackmore and Candace Knight, their debut album, Shadow of the Moon, is a phenomenal album, man. If you like that kind of acoustic, folky, Renaissance, melodic, it's just great. If you never heard this album, if you're in the mood, they do a great cover of Ocean Gypsy by Renaissance. But check out a song called Wish You Were Here from this album. I put it on any kind of mixtape that I do, and everybody stops in the tracks. They're like, what the hell song is that? That's incredible. Wish You Were Here. Another song on here called No Second Chance is great. Spirit of Sea is amazing. This is terrific. Blackmore's Night and the album Shadow of the Moon. There you have it. Pretty quick. 32 debut albums that were not only breakthroughs, but in my opinion, are their best albums ever. Now, here's another stack here of 12 that I haven't shown yet. And the reason why is you're probably thinking about them, and I'm going to tell you why I didn't include them. And this is the Velvet Underground and their debut album, of course. The one Peel Slow to See. This is the Velvet Underground and Nico, and it's a great classic album. I didn't include it for me because, believe it or not, I love the Velvet Underground, and all 4 albums are so different, and this is never my go-to one. I actually love Loaded even more. I know this has John Cale, and the Grey album, the 3rd one, is also a real favorite of mine. So I didn't include this because, to me, it's not their best album. I'm going to do the same thing with Steely Dan. A lot of people are going to say, Can't Buy a Thrill. And I totally get it because this is an amazing album. I love this album. But the reality is, for me, The Royal Scam was the first Steely Dan album I ever bought when it came out. My sister had that, so I knew it really well. But this album just blew me away, The Royal Scam. And the following years, Asia was, a monster success. So for me, I wouldn't include Can't Buy a Thrill because I don't think it's their best album ever. And the same thing with Patti Smith. She just featured in my previous video. Third Time is a Charm. A lot of people are going to say, where's Horses? She never betted Horses. It was her debut, and it's her best thing. And I'm really not going to argue because I love Horses. But for me, Easter actually is a much better record. Just for me. A lot of people are going to say, where's Santana's debut album? Right there, Santana. And I got no problem with that. It is a classic album. But the reality is, when I listen to Santana, it tends not to be the debut. In fact, the next album, Abraxas, I actually think is better. So I didn't include that. A lot of people might think, well, you put George Harrison in there. What about John Lennon? Forgetting about Two Virgins and all of that experimental stuff. His debut album, of course, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band. which is an incredible album. I love this album. It's a monster. But I didn't include it because when I go pound for pound, song for song, I actually think Imagine is a stronger album. So we didn't include that. Some people might say, what about Nils Lofgren? I'm a huge Nils Lofgren fan, and his debut album, this one, is amazing. It's just a great, great debut album, and I love it. But maybe it should be included, but maybe it shouldn't, because there's other Nils Lofgren albums I listen to more, like the Nils album from 1979 with Shine Silently and No Mercy. So I didn't include that. Marshall Crenshaw is one I thought of. I love this album. I actually do think this is the best album, but I don't have all of Marshall Crenshaw's albums, and I have a feeling people are going to say, nah, you're missing Field Trip and some other ones. So I didn't include this, but it really could have been in there. How about people are going to say Crosby, Stills, and Nash, the CSN album, a legendary, damn near perfect album. No argument for me, except that I kind of think that the next one, Deja Vu, is better, and I listened to it more than the CSN album, the Crosby, Stills, and Nash album. But some people are going to be real picky and say, well, there's a different band, it's got Neil Young. To me, it's all the same family, and I would prefer this album. So I didn't include the Crosby, Stills, Nash album. Same situation with this one, the band. A lot of people are going to say, music for Big Pink, man. This is like a revolutionary, legendary album, and it is, and I love it. So why didn't I include it? Because I actually think the Brown album, the self-titled band album, the second one is better. So that's just my opinion. And this one I'm really on the fence on. The Black Crowes. I love this debut album. It was huge, and it's phenomenal, and I love it. But most people think the second album, the Southern Harmony and Musical Companion, is a stronger album. I'm on the fence. I can't. They're both so great that I really can't separate these two. So I didn't include them in here because it's so close. But it's possible. And I'm going to show you one more. And that's the Beastie Boys, in case anybody's thinking about it. This is the only studio album I have by them, so I could have included it, Licensed to Ill. But I didn't think that would be fair because I don't know enough about their discography for me to really say that that is definitively their best album. So I didn't include it. For me, it would be, but that's only because I don't have the other one. So it's really not a fair comparison. So there you go, guys. 22 minutes or so, and I covered a lot of ground. These are my choices for 32 debut albums that are not only their breakthroughs, but their best albums ever, plus another 12 that are debatable. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know your opinions. I love when you comment. It's just great. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. This is actually, what is today? Tuesday night, but I don't think I'm going to post this thing until Thursday because today's election day in the United States and I voted. And who knows what's going to be the next couple of days. So I just figured, yeah, I'll post this thing Thursday morning. So that's about it. Thanks as always. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great night. Stay safe. Let's hope everything stays cool and chill in America, regardless of who wins. And I'll see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show. Take it easy.